Danny Cole had seen many strange things in his 12 years as a cargo pilot. He had flown through asteroid storms and landed on moons where the air could kill a man in seconds. He had met traders from a dozen different alien species and learned enough of their languages to do business. But nothing in his life had prepared him for the moment he walked through the wrong door on Horizon Point Station and found himself face to face with a warrior. The creature stood over 9 feet tall. His body was covered in thick scales that looked like gray-green armor. He had 4 massive arms, each one thick with muscle, and his hands ended in claws that could tear through steel. His eyes were deep amber, like pools of fire set into a face that seemed carved from stone. A long scar ran down the left side of his head, and his teeth were sharp enough to bite through bone. Danny froze in the doorway. His heart pounded so hard he could hear it in his ears. Every human child grew up hearing stories about they were the monsters of the galaxy. They had been at war with humanity for nearly 50 years, and the cold peace between the two species was always one mistake away from breaking. Humans did not survive encounters with warriors. Everyone knew this. The warrior stared at Danny with those burning eyes. In one of his 4 hands he held a curved blade that was almost as long as Danny was tall. The weapon was stained with something dark. Blood, Danny realized. But then he noticed something else. The warrior was leaning against a stack of cargo containers. His breathing was heavy and rough. And on his side, just below where a human would have ribs, there was a deep wound. More blood seeped from the gash, dripping onto the metal floor. Danny knew he should run. He knew he should call station security. He knew that staying in this room was probably the last mistake he would ever make. But his feet would not move. He kept looking at the wound and the way the warrior was struggling to stay upright. He raised his blade slowly. The movement seemed to cost him great effort. His amber eyes narrowed as he studied the small human who had stumbled into his hiding place. Danny held up his hands. They were shaking, but he forced himself to speak. His voice came out quieter than he wanted, but at least it came out. "You are hurt," Danny said. The warrior did not answer. He kept the blade pointed at Danny's chest. "I am not a soldier," Danny continued. "I am just a cargo pilot. I move boxes from one place to another. That is all I do." Still no answer, but the warrior had not attacked yet. Danny took this as a good sign. "That wound looks bad," Danny said. "You are bleeding a lot. If you do not get help, you might die." The warrior made a sound deep in his throat. It might have been a laugh, but it was hard to tell. When he spoke, his voice was like rocks grinding together. "Death comes for all warriors eventually. I will meet it standing." Danny looked at the wound again. He had basic medical training. Every pilot did. You could not fly alone through deep space without knowing how to patch yourself up. The cut was deep, but it did not look like it had hit anything vital. With proper care, the warrior could survive. "I have medical supplies on my ship," Danny said. "I could help you." The amber eyes widened slightly. For a long moment, the warrior just stared at Danny as if he had spoken in a language that made no sense. "You would help me," the warrior said slowly. "You, a human, would help a." "Yes." "Why?" Danny thought about the question. He thought about his brother, who had died in a border skirmish with the 7 years ago. He thought about all the hatred he was supposed to feel. He thought about how easy it would be to walk away and let this enemy bleed out on the floor of an empty cargo bay. But when he looked at the warrior, he did not see a monster. He saw someone who was hurt and alone and far from home. He saw someone who was waiting to die because he had no other choice. "Because you need help," Danny said, "and I can give it. That seems like enough reason to me." The warrior lowered his blade a few inches. His expression was impossible to read, but something had changed in his eyes. "I am called," the warrior said. "Among my people I was known as the Unbroken. I have killed more enemies than I can count. I have burned cities and shattered armies. I am the nightmare that human children fear." Danny nodded. "I am Danny. I haul cargo, mostly machine parts and food supplies, nothing very exciting." Stared at him for another long moment. Then he made that grinding sound again, and this time Danny was sure it was a laugh. "You are either very brave or very foolish, Danny who hauls cargo." "Probably both," Danny admitted. Lowered his blade completely. The effort seemed to drain something out of him, and he sagged against the cargo containers. More blood dripped from his wound. "The ones who did this to me will be looking for me," said. "If you help me, you will become their enemy as well." "Who did this to you?" "My own crew." There was bitterness in the warrior's voice. My second-in-command decided he wanted to be first. He attacked me from behind like a coward. I killed 3 of them before I escaped, but there are more. They will not stop hunting until I am dead. Danny processed this information. He was already in deep trouble just by being in this room. If station security found him talking to he would spend the rest of his life in a prison cell. But if he walked away now, would certainly die. Danny made his decision. My ship is in docking bay 7, he said. Can you walk? Pushed himself upright. He was unsteady, but he managed to stand on his own 2 feet. He looked down at Danny with something that might have been curiosity or might have been respect. Why do you not flee, small one? Why do you not fear me? Danny shrugged. Maybe I do fear you, but that does not mean I have to let you die. He turned and walked toward the door, not knowing if the massive warrior would follow or if a blade would find his back. After 3 steps, he heard the heavy footfalls behind him. Was following. They made their way through the back corridors of Horizon Point, avoiding the main passages where they might be seen. Danny led the way, checking each corner before they moved. Stayed close behind, one hand pressed against his wounded side. When they finally reached the quiet wanderer, Danny opened the hatch and helped climb inside. The warrior barely fit through the doorway. Penny, the ship's computer, immediately began flashing warning lights. Danny, there is on board, Penny announced in her calm voice. This is extremely dangerous. I recommend immediate evacuation. Override, Danny said. He is a guest. A guest, Penny repeated, and somehow managed to sound doubtful even through her artificial voice. Danny led to the small medical bay and began gathering supplies. The warrior sat down heavily on the examination table, which creaked under his weight. You are strange, Danny who hauls cargo, said. So I have been told. Danny began cleaning the wound and watched him with those amber eyes that had seen so much death. Neither of them knew it yet, but this moment would change everything. The wound was worse than Danny had first thought. The blade had cut deep into his side, slicing through muscle and scraping against something hard underneath. Bones were denser than human bones, almost like metal. The cut had gone all the way to that inner armor and stopped there. If the blade had gone just a little deeper, would have been dead before he reached the cargo bay. Danny worked carefully, cleaning the wound with antiseptic solution and then sealing it with medical adhesive. The adhesive was designed for human skin, but it seemed to work well enough on scales, sat perfectly still through the entire process. He did not flinch or make any sound of pain. His amber eyes watched every movement Danny made. You have done this before, observed. I have patched myself up a few times, Danny said. Cargo work is not always safe. Things fall, machinery breaks. You learn to fix what needs fixing. Among my people, tending to wounds is the work of the lowest servants. A warrior would never lower himself to such tasks. Danny shrugged. Among my people, taking care of others is considered a good thing. It does not matter who does it. Was silent for a moment. Then he spoke again, and his voice was quieter than before. The propaganda we are taught says that humans are weak, that you are soft creatures with no honor and no courage, that you would rather deceive than fight. What do you think now? I think the propaganda may not be entirely accurate. Danny finished sealing the wound and wrapped a clean bandage around his torso. The warrior's body was massive, and Danny had to use almost his entire supply of bandages to complete the job. But when he was done, the bleeding had stopped completely. You should rest, Danny said. The wound needs time to heal. There is no time for rest, and his hunters will be searching the station. When they do not find me, they will begin scanning ships. They will find me here and they will kill us both. Danny sat down on a small stool across from. The medical bay was cramped with the huge warrior inside, but somehow it did not feel as dangerous as it should have. Maybe Danny was getting used to being around a creature who could snap him in half without effort. Tell me about, Danny said. Why did he betray you? His amber eyes darkened. There was old pain in them, mixed with something that looked like regret. Was my second in command for many years. He was ambitious, but I thought his ambition served the crew. I was wrong. He wanted power more than he wanted honor, and he saw that I was changing. Changing how? Looked at his 4 hands. Each one was from countless battles. I have been a warrior for more than 40 of your human years. I have fought in campaigns across 100 worlds. I have done terrible things in the name of the Empire, things that once made me proud. But recently, I began to question. Question 1. Everything met Danny's eyes. 3 years ago, my ship was ordered to destroy a colony on a small moon called. The colony was supposed to be a human military outpost. We were told it was a threat that needed to be eliminated. Danny felt his stomach tighten. He had heard of, everyone had. It was one of the worst attacks of the Cold War. When we arrived, continued, I saw that the colony was not a military outpost. It was a farming settlement. There were families there, children, they had no weapons. They posed no threat to anyone. His voice grew heavy with the weight of memory. My commanders ordered me to burn it anyway. They said it did not matter what the colony really was. They said humans were the enemy and all enemies must be destroyed. And I followed those orders. I killed them all. Men, women, children. I burned their homes and their fields and their animals. When it was over, there was nothing left but ash. Danny did not speak. He did not know what to say. That night, said, I looked at my hands and saw what I had become. I saw a monster, not because I was, but because I had stopped asking whether what I was doing was right. I had stopped thinking. I had just followed orders and killed and killed and killed. What did you do? I began to change. Slowly, quietly. I started refusing certain missions. I started asking questions that made my commanders uncomfortable. I started to believe that there might be another way to live besides endless war. His jaw tightened. Saw this weakness in me. He reported my doubts to our commanders. They ordered him to remove me and take control of my ship. He was happy to obey. Danny understood now. Was not just an injured warrior. He was a man who had seen the evil in his own heart and was trying to become something better, and his own people had tried to kill him for it. I lost my brother in the war, Danny said quietly. His name was, he was 23 years old. He had just gotten married. His wife was pregnant with their first child. Looked at Danny with something like fear in his eyes. He was waiting for the hatred to come. A raiding party hit the transport he was on. There were no survivors. My brother, his wife, their unborn baby, all gone. Danny took a slow breath. For a long time, I hated your people. I wanted revenge. I dreamed about finding the warriors who killed my brother and making them suffer. But then I realized something. What did you realize? That revenge would not bring back. That more killing would not undo what had already been done. That hatred was just another kind of prison, and I did not want to spend my life locked inside it. Danny looked at with steady eyes. So I let it go, not because I forgave what happened, not because the pain went away, but because carrying that hatred was destroying me, and would not have wanted that. Was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. Among my people, such thoughts would be considered weakness. A warrior is supposed to hold on to hatred until death. It gives us strength. Maybe that is what they tell you, but it looks to me like that hatred just makes you fight forever. It never lets you stop. It never lets you heal. Looked at his bandaged wound, then back at Danny. You have given me aid when you had every reason to let me die. You have shown me kindness when you had every reason to show me only hatred. Among my people, this creates a life debt. It means I owe you everything I am and everything I will ever be. Danny shook his head. I do not want a life debt. I do not want you to owe me anything. I helped you because it was the right thing to do, that is all. Stared at Danny as if he was looking at a creature from another universe. In a way, Danny supposed he was. Then what do you want, Danny who hauls cargo? Danny thought about it for a moment. I want to get you somewhere safe. And then maybe I want to believe that this does not have to be how things always are, that humans and do not have to be enemies forever. Made that grinding sound that was his laugh. You dream big for such a small creature. Someone has to. Danny stood up and moved toward the cockpit. We need to leave the station before finds us. Get some rest while I plot a course. As he walked away, called after him. Danny. Danny stopped and looked back. Thank you. It was the first time I had ever spoken those words to a human. Danny nodded and continued to the cockpit, not knowing that this simple moment of connection would echo across the galaxy. The quiet wanderer slipped away from Horizon Point Station just as the search teams began scanning docked ships. Danny had timed their departure perfectly, leaving during a scheduled cargo shuttle launch that created enough sensor noise to cover their escape. Within minutes, they were in open space, accelerating toward the outer reaches of the system. Sat in the co-pilot seat, which Danny had never expected to see occupied by a 9-foot alien warrior. The chair was far too small for him, and his massive body spilled over the edges in ways that would have been funny under different circumstances. But the warrior did not complain. He just watched the stars through the viewport with an expression Danny could not read. "Where are we going?" asked. "There is a small moon about 3 days from here. It is called Haven. It is a neutral territory where people go when they want to disappear for a while. No questions asked, no records kept. We can hide there until we figure out what to do next." "You know this place well." Danny nodded. "I have made deliveries there a few times. The people who run it do not care if you are human or alien or something in between. They only care that you pay your docking fees and do not cause trouble. Consider this: a place without judgment. That is a rare thing in this galaxy." They traveled in silence for a while. The stars drifted past the viewport, cold and distant and endless. Danny checked his instruments regularly, watching for any sign of pursuit. So far, the sensors showed nothing. "Tell me about your world," said suddenly. Danny looked at him surprised. "Earth." "Yes, I have heard many things about the human, but I do not know how much of it is true." Danny leaned back in his pilot's chair and thought about the best way to describe a planet he had not seen in almost 10 years. "Earth is beautiful," he said finally. "At least, the parts that are still wild. There are forests so thick you cannot see the sky. There are oceans so deep that we still have not explored all of them. There are mountains that touch the clouds and deserts that stretch for thousands of miles." It sounds like a harsh world. It can be. Humans evolved on a planet that was always trying to kill us. The weather could change in hours. Predators hunted us. Diseases spread through our communities. We had to fight for every single day of survival. Nodded slowly. "My people call worlds like that death worlds. They are considered dangerous and unstable. Most species avoid them. Humans did not have that choice. Earth was all we had, so we adapted. We learned to survive anything the planet threw at us, and eventually we learned to thrive." "Is that why humans are so strange? Because you come from a death world?" Danny smiled slightly. "Maybe. We are certainly stubborn. When something tries to kill us, our first instinct is not to run away. It is to figure out how to fight back." "I have seen this stubbornness in battle," said. "Human soldiers do not retreat when they should. They stand and fight even when victory is impossible. My people find this both admirable and terrifying. We call it determination, or stupidity depending on who you ask." Made his grinding laugh again. Danny was starting to enjoy that sound. They talked for hours as the ship carried them through the void. Asked about human customs, human food, human art, human families. Danny answered as best he could, and in turn, he asked about culture. He learned that lived for over 200 years. He learned that they were born in clutches of 6 to 10 eggs, and that siblings competed against each other from the moment they hatched. He learned that their entire society was built around strength and combat, and that showing weakness of any kind could mean death. "Is that why you were betrayed?" Danny asked. "Because you showed doubt." Was quiet for a moment before answering. "Among my people, doubt is the greatest weakness. A warrior must always be certain. Certain of his strength, certain of his purpose, certain of his hatred for the enemy. To question is to falter, and to falter is to die." "That sounds exhausting." "It is, but it is all I have ever known, until now." Danny checked the sensors again, still clear. He allowed himself to relax a little. "What will you do when we reach Haven? Do you have any plan for what comes next?" His amber eyes grew distant. "I have thought about this. If I return to space, I will be hunted and killed as a traitor. If I stay in human space, I will be captured and imprisoned as an enemy. There is no place in this galaxy where I can live in peace. There must be somewhere. Perhaps, but I do not know where. For the first time in my life, I have no mission, no orders, no purpose. I am truly alone." Danny thought about what that must feel like. To be cut off from everything you had ever known. To be rejected by your own people for daring to question whether endless war was really the only way to live. "You are not alone right now," Danny said, "for whatever that is worth." Looked at him with an expression that Danny could not quite interpret. There was surprise in it, and something that might have been gratitude. "It is worth more than you know, Danny who hauls cargo." They were 2 days into their journey when the sensors finally detected what Danny had been dreading. An interceptor had appeared at the edge of their scanning range. It was moving fast, cutting across space on a direct course toward them. Said, his voice was flat and hard. How did he find us? There must be a tracker somewhere on my body, a device implanted by my commanders in case I ever needed to be found. I should have thought of this before. Danny checked the interceptor's speed and did some quick calculations. The numbers were not good. They will catch us before we reach Haven. The Quiet Wanderer is built for cargo, not speed. We cannot outrun them. Stood up from the co-pilot chair. His massive form filled the cockpit. Then I will leave. I will take one of your escape pods and draw them away. There is no reason for you to die because of me. Sit down, Danny said. I am serious, Danny. This is my fight, not yours. You have done more than enough. Let me go and save yourself. I said sit down. Something in Danny's voice made pause. The small human did not sound afraid. He sounded determined. I did not save your life just to let you throw it away. We are going to figure this out together or not at all. Those are the only options. Stared at Danny for a long moment. Then slowly, he sat back down in the too small chair. You are the most stubborn creature I have ever met. Thank you, now help me think. There must be some way out of this. Closed his eyes and considered the situation. When he opened them again, there was something new in his expression, a spark of possibility. There may be one way, but it is dangerous and it requires you to do something no human has ever done. Tell me. Among my people, there is an ancient tradition called the challenge of honor. Any warrior can challenge another to single combat. The challenged party must accept or be forever shamed. If we invoke this tradition, we'll have to face us directly. He cannot simply destroy the ship from a distance. Okay, but what happens in single combat? I'm not exactly built for fighting a. Amber eyes met Danny's. You do not have to win the fight. You just have to start it. And I have an idea about how we might turn that moment to our advantage. Danny looked at the approaching interceptor on his sensors. Then he looked back at. Tell me your idea. And so, in a small cargo ship drifting through the void between stars, a human and a began a plan together. Two enemies who had become something else entirely. The interceptor was called the Crimson Fang, and it was built for one purpose only, to hunt and to kill. Its weapons could tear through a cargo ship like the Quiet Wanderer in seconds. Danny knew this. And the warrior who commanded the interceptor certainly knew this. The communication screen flickered to life, and Danny got his first look at the creature who had betrayed. Was slightly smaller than, but his scales were darker, and his eyes held a cruel intelligence. A fresh scar ran across his face, proof that had not gone down without a fight. The unbroken, said, his voice dripping with mockery. Though I suppose you are quite broken now, hiding aboard a human cargo ship like a frightened animal. How far the mighty have fallen. Said nothing. He and Danny had agreed that Danny would do the talking. I am Danny Cole, Danny said, stepping into view of the communication screen. Captain of this vessel, I am carrying no weapons and no military cargo. Under the Neutral Space Accords, you have no legal right to interfere with my passage. Laughed. It was an ugly sound, nothing like grinding chuckle. The Neutral Space Accords, how adorable. Do you really think I care about your pathetic human laws? You are harboring a traitor to the Empire. Hand him over and I might let you live. Refuse, and I will burn your ship to cinders with you inside it. Danny forced himself to stay calm. His heart was pounding, but he could not let see his fear. I know something of tradition, Danny said. I know that a warrior who attacks an unarmed enemy brings shame upon himself and his crew. I know that a warrior who refuses a proper challenge is considered a coward in the eyes of his people. The expression changed slightly. He had not expected a human to speak of such things. What are you suggesting, little creature? Danny took a deep breath. This was the moment that everything depended on. I'm invoking the challenge of honor. I challenge you to face me in single combat aboard your own ship. If you win, you can take and do what you want with him. But if you are too afraid to accept a challenge from a small human cargo pilot, then perhaps your crew should know what kind of coward is commanding them. Silence followed Danny's words. On the screen, his amber eyes burned with rage. Behind him, Danny could see other crew members watching. They had heard the challenge. They were waiting to see how their commander would respond. You dare, hissed. You dare challenge a warrior to combat. You would not last 3 seconds against me. Then prove it. Accept my challenge. or admit that you are afraid of a human. Every on the interceptor was watching now. Danny could see them in the background of the screen, their eyes fixed on their commander. In culture, refusing a challenge was one of the greatest dishonors imaginable, was trapped, and he knew it. "Very well," said through clenched teeth. "Dock with my ship, little human. I will enjoy tearing you apart with my bare hands." The screen went dark. Danny let out a breath he did not realize he had been holding. "That was well done," said quietly. "You understand my people better than I expected. I did some reading once, never thought I would actually need to use it." Danny guided the quiet wanderer toward the interceptor's docking port. His hands were steady on the controls, but inside he was terrified. The plan he and had made was risky. So many things could go wrong, but it was the only chance they had. The two ships connected with a heavy clang. Danny stood up from his chair and turned to. "Remember, you stay hidden until the right moment. If this works, we might actually get out of this alive. And if it does not work, then at least we tried. That has to count for something." Put one of his four massive hands on Danny's shoulder. The touch was surprisingly gentle. "You have more courage than any warrior I have ever known, Danny who hauls cargo. Whatever happens next, I want you to know that." Danny nodded. Then he walked to the airlock and stepped through into the Crimson Fang. The inside of the ship was dark and hot. The air smelled like metal and something else, something organic that Danny did not want to think about too much. A dozen warriors lined the corridor, watching him with cold eyes. At the end of the corridor stood, waiting. Danny walked forward slowly. He kept his hands visible and his movements calm. He could feel the eyes of every warrior on him, measuring him, dismissing him as weak and small and insignificant. He stopped about 10 feet from. Up close, the commander was even more intimidating. His four arms ended in claws that had been sharpened to points. His teeth were bared in a grin that held no warmth. "Before we begin," Danny said, "I want to ask you something. Ask quickly, you do not have much time left." Danny looked around at the gathered warriors, then he looked back at. "How did you defeat?" He was the greatest warrior in the fleet. He fought in 100 campaigns. He was called the Unbroken because no one could ever bring him down. "How did you manage to wound him and take his ship?" His grin widened. "I was smarter than him. I saw that he was becoming weak, asking questions, showing mercy to enemies, doubting the wisdom of our commanders. So I went to our leaders and told them what I had seen. They gave me permission to remove him." "Remove him how?" "We waited until he was sleeping. Then 6 of us attacked him at once. Even then, he killed 3 of us before we brought him down. If I had faced him fairly, I would be dead now. But a wise warrior does not fight fair. A wise warrior wins by any means necessary." Danny let those words hang in the air. He watched the faces of the crew members around him. Some of them were nodding in agreement with, but others looked uncomfortable. There was doubt in their eyes. "So you admit it," Danny said, raising his voice so everyone could hear. "You did not defeat in honorable combat. You attacked him while he slept, 6 against 1, from behind. That is how you became commander of this ship." His grin faded. He realized what Danny was doing. "Silence, human. Your words mean nothing." "They mean everything," Danny said. "You talk about honor and tradition, but you have none. You are not a warrior. You are a coward who only wins by betraying those who trust him. How long before you turn on everyone else on this ship? How long before one of your crew members wakes up with a blade in their back?" The murmuring among the crew grew louder. Looked around and saw the doubt spreading through his warriors. "Enough," shouted, "kill him now." But the warriors did not move. They looked at each other, uncertain. Some of them looked at with new suspicion in their eyes. And then a deep voice spoke from the airlock behind Danny. "I invoke the right of the betrayed." Stepped out of the quiet wanderer. His wound was still bandaged, but he stood tall and straight. His amber eyes were fixed on. "By the ancient laws of our people, a warrior who has been betrayed may claim the right to face his betrayer in single combat. This right cannot be transferred. I challenge you. Face me now or be forever marked as an honorless." His face twisted with fear and rage. He had not expected to show himself. He had not expected his own crew to hesitate. "You are wounded," said. "You are weak. This challenge is meaningless." "Then you should have no trouble defeating me," replied, "unless you are afraid." The watching warriors shifted. Their eyes moved between, and Danny held his breath. Then one of the warriors stepped forward. He was old, with gray scaling his scales and scars covering his body. "The challenge has been made," the old warrior said. "The ancient laws are clear. Commander must accept or forfeit his rank and his honor." More warriors nodded. The old laws were sacred, even could not break them without losing everything. Slowly drew his blade, his forearms flexed with deadly strength. "Very well, old friend, let us finish what I started." Smiled, and there was no warmth in it at all. "Yes, let us." The warriors of the Crimson Fang formed a circle in the main cargo hold of the ship. The space was wide enough for combat, with high ceilings that could accommodate the massive fighters. Danny stood among them, the only human in a crowd of aliens who could kill him without effort. But no one was looking at him now. All eyes were on the two warriors in the center of the circle, and faced each other across 20 feet of metal floor. Both held their blades ready. Both were perfectly still, waiting for the moment to strike. Was faster. He launched himself forward with terrifying speed, all four arms moving in deadly patterns. His blade cut through the air where had been standing a heartbeat before, but was no longer there. Despite his wound, despite his age, he moved with the grace of a dancer. He attacked and struck back with a slash that opened a shallow cut on his arm. First blood had been drawn. Snarled and attacked again, more cautiously this time. The two warriors circled each other, exchanging blows that would have killed any human instantly. The sound of blade against blade rang through the cargo hold like thunder. Danny watched with his heart in his throat. He could see that was struggling. The wound in his side was slowing him down, making him half a second slower than he should have been. In a fight between two warriors, half a second could mean the difference between life and death. Saw it too. His attacks became more aggressive, targeting his injured side. He was trying to reopen the wound to make bleed until he could no longer fight. A vicious strike got through his defense. The blade sliced across his bandages, and fresh blood began to seep through. Stumbled backward, his breathing heavy. "You see," shouted to the watching crew, "he is weak. He is finished. This is why he had to be removed. The great, the unbroken, has become nothing but a broken old fool." Straightened slowly, his amber eyes met. "You talk too much," he said. "You always did." Then did something unexpected. He tossed his blade aside. It clattered on the metal floor, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent cargo hold. Stared at him in confusion. "What are you doing?" "I am tired of killing," said. "I am tired of blades and blood and death. I came here to face you, but I did not come here to kill you." "Then you are a fool, and you will die." Raised his blade for the killing stroke. Every warrior in the room expected to see fall. Danny wanted to cry out, to stop what was happening, but he knew there was nothing he could do. But did not fall. Instead, he spoke. "I saw something in the last few days that changed me. I saw a human who had every reason to hate me, every reason to let me die. His brother was killed by warriors. He could have walked away and let me bleed out on the floor of that cargo bay, but he did not. He helped me. He saved my life. And when I asked him why, do you know what he said?" Hesitated, his blade still raised. "He said that I needed help and he could give it. That was enough reason for him. No thoughts of revenge, no demand for payment. Just kindness offered freely to someone who deserved none of it." Took a step toward, unarmed and unprotected. That is what strength really looks like. Not the ability to kill, the ability to choose not to. The courage to show mercy when hatred would be so much easier. "You are speaking nonsense," said, but his voice was uncertain. "I am speaking truth. The truth that our people have forgotten in our endless wars. We have been fighting so long that we have forgotten why we started. We have been killing so long that we have forgotten how to stop. But there is another way. This human showed me that." Spread his forearms wide, leaving himself completely open. "So do what you want, kill me if you must. But know that if you do, you will not be proving your strength. You will only be proving your fear. Fear of change, fear of peace, fear of becoming something better than what you are." The cargo hold was absolutely silent, stood frozen, his blade trembling in his grip. Around him, his crew watched with expressions that Danny could not read. Slowly, impossibly, lowered his blade. "You have lost your mind," said, but there was no conviction in his voice. "Perhaps, or perhaps I have finally found it." Stared at for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone in the room, including Danny. He dropped his blade. "I cannot kill you like this," said. His voice was rough as if the words were being torn out of him. "Not when you stand there defenseless, talking about mercy and peace. It would make me exactly what you said, a coward who only strikes at those who cannot fight back." Nodded slowly. "Then what will you do?" Looked at his crew. He looked at the blade on the floor. Then he looked back at. "I do not know. For the first time in my life, I truly do not know." The old warrior who had spoken earlier stepped forward. His ancient eyes moved between and the small human standing among them. "The fight is over," the old warrior declared. "By refusing to strike an unarmed opponent, Commander has acknowledged that speaks with honor. Neither warrior has fallen. Neither warrior has fled. The challenge is resolved." A murmur ran through the crew. This was not how these things were supposed to end, but no one argued with the old warrior's ruling. Turned to Danny and gestured for him to come forward. Danny walked across the cargo hold on legs that felt like they were made of water. He stopped beside, feeling very small surrounded by all these massive warriors. "This is Danny Cole," said to the assembled crew. "He is a cargo pilot. He has no military training, no combat skills, no special abilities, but he did something that changed the course of my life. He looked at an enemy and saw a person who needed help. He chose kindness over hatred. He chose hope over fear." Put his hand on Danny's shoulder again. "Among our people, this kind of act creates a life debt. Danny has refused to accept this debt. He says he does not want me to owe him anything, so instead, I will honor him in a different way. From this day forward, Danny Cole is under my protection. Any warrior who harms him answers to me." The crew exchanged glances. Some looked skeptical, but others were looking at Danny with something that might have been respect. "I think," Danny said quietly, "that you have been told a lot of lies about humans, and we have been told a lot of lies about you. Maybe it is time we started learning the truth about each other instead." Hours later, Danny and sat on a small frontier world called Distant Shore. The Crimson Fang had released them peacefully, and had even allowed to send a message to certain sympathetic ears within the command structure. News of what had happened was already spreading. They sat at a small table outside a trading post, sharing a meal of local food that neither of them particularly enjoyed but both ate anyway. The sun was setting over distant mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. "What happens now?" Danny asked. "I do not know," admitted. "Perhaps nothing changes. Perhaps the war continues forever. Perhaps I will be hunted by my own people until someone finally catches me. Or perhaps things will be different. Perhaps your people will start asking the same questions you asked. Perhaps one day, humans and will not be enemies anymore." Considered this, "You really believe that is possible?" "I have to believe it, otherwise what is the point?" Was silent for a long moment. Then he picked up his cup and raised it toward Danny. "To impossible things, then, to peace between enemies, to friendship between strangers." Danny raised his own cup, "To friendship." They drank together as the sun continued to set. "Danny," said, "what do humans call someone who chooses peace over war, someone who extends their hand instead of their blade?" Danny thought about it. "We call them a lot of things, but I think the best word is simply friend." Repeated the word slowly, tasting it as if it were something new and strange. "Friend. I think I like this word. I think I will keep it." Danny smiled. "Good, because I think you're stuck with it now." And so, on a quiet frontier world far from the centers of power and war, a human cargo pilot and a warrior shared a meal as friends. It was a small thing, a tiny moment in the vastness of the galaxy. But sometimes, small things are exactly where change begins. The war between humans and would not end overnight. There would be more battles, more deaths, more hatred on both sides. But the story of Danny and would spread. It would be told in quiet corners and whispered in dark rooms. And slowly, like a seed pushing through stone, it would begin to grow. Because one human had faced a giant alien warrior and chosen friendship. And that choice, as small as it seemed, had changed everything.